How's it going, everyone? Vince here with On to the Next podcast. This is episode 23. It's going to be a solo episode, short but sweet, talking about some topics in today's world. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this one. This is On to the Next.
It's been a long time coming. They ain't come for my clock, they tugging it. Putting up numbers, 99 problems, and I still kept it 100. Yeah, it's been a long time coming. They ain't come for my clock, they tugging it.
How's it going, everyone? Vince here. On to the Next podcast. Guys, this is episode 23, and I like to call it the GOAT episode because I am from the era of Michael Jordan, and he was the GOAT, whether you like it or not. I think that's just the way it is. He was the GOAT. But anyway, guys, thanks so much for tuning in to On to the Next podcast. Guys, I want to talk about a few things that have been on my mind this week with some things that we've seen on social media during this week, and how some people have made light of it. Some people have made disbelief of it. But regardless, this episode is about how what we do in our next affects the people around us. And I'll tell you what, guys, right now, and I solely speak by a lot of experience, what I'm going through in my life. You know, a lot of the things that I'm going through in my life, they're affecting like my family, my immediate family, my wife, my kids. Right now I'm working out of town. Of course, what's great right now is I'm in Florida, and I'm with my family, and couldn't be happier. And it's such a wonderful thing. I was just reflecting the other day when I was sitting around my dinner table, and I'm like, I feel like, man, this is my favorite thing in the world to do right now. I don't care what we're eating, but it's the four of us sitting together as a family, eating dinner, and just breaking bread together, talking. We always talk about each other's days, each other's lives, and it's such a great thing to do. For me, that's one of my favorite things, is being able to sit around the dinner table with my family. And, part of my life, I've been away. I've been having to travel for work, and including some of the things I'm doing with this. And it's always hard being away, but when you get back together, the appreciation you have for the four people that, it's like you see your kids growing. Both of my kids are graduated out of high school. My son's in college. My daughter's about to enter college, and seeing them grow to who they are now, and know that, man, there is that limited time that you have with those people in your lives. So, in saying that, like, my next right now has me working away from my family. Like, I'm traveling and having to do some things, but I get to be here now, and I appreciate it so much because I love my family and I love being around them. And I tell you what, I was able to go to church. It's Sunday today. I'm airing this tomorrow, Monday. And just even being around my church family was such a cool thing. A lot of a few of the people I've had on my podcast, and such great people. And you just appreciate that time and those relationships that you have with those people. And, I want to say, in everything that we do, there's consequence, there's reward and consequence to everything we do, and this last week, I want to kind of talk about the Coldplay incident. We had two people that were, I want to say allegedly, and everybody says that it's true. He's come out and admit that, he was in the wrong for what he was doing. the gentleman who, the two that were allegedly caught cheating on their spouses at a Coldplay concert. And, guys, he's a successful head of a company, head of a huge tech company. The lady who was with him was part of that, part of the head of the corporate human resources. And, I think about like some of the decisions that we make in our lives. We talk about rewards and consequence, sometimes we think, well, we made this decision because it's going to get us to a level of reward, whether it be financial, freedom in being able to do things later on down the road, or the consequence of things, of their actions, of how it affects everybody around you. And I kind of wanted to talk about that because I think about it a lot, when I'm away from my family, what kind of decisions I'm making, am I making those decisions to better myself and to better my family? And those decisions weigh heavy on me because I know that any decision that I make is going to affect the outcome of the way I interact with my family. And, I say I pray because it saddens me when you see the after effects of the actions, just simple actions you would think simple, of him creating a relationship with somebody outside of his marriage. And you always think about how rewarding my flesh feels at the time, because I'm able to be with not only my wife, but this other woman. And you think, well, yeah, that's, you're rewarding your flesh for something that spiritually and emotionally is going to damage somebody else in your life. And I think it's so important for us to kind of think about those things in our life. And I always say, including myself, because I am not a perfect person, and there's decisions that I've made in my life that I've been like, man, I shouldn't have made that decision. It's not only bad for me, it's bad for my family and everybody around me. And but like right now in my life, it's like I need to make the best decisions possible for me and my family, and a lot of people think, is it hard to be away, and is it hard to do things outside of your family, travel, or anything? And I know a lot of people in my life who have to travel for work. There's temptations outside of their family that come about a lot of these people. I've talked to a lot of people that I'm friends with, and there does come, and I believe I talked to my buddy Joe Alvarado a few episodes back about how, sometimes when we have these weaknesses in our life, whether it be, a weakness for infidelity, or just anything that you feel like there's a weakness in your life, the devil tries to attack you in that way. It's amazing how and I always hear these messages about the more we try to push ourselves towards Christ, the more the devil is going to try and hit those weaknesses. And I do believe that's true. And I believe that, I have to remind myself like daily, and I have to tell myself daily, your relationship with God has to come first. And I know I always talk about past episodes, but there's a lot of things that I've gotten out of past episodes from people that have given like insightful knowledge out of the episodes, including the last one. Me and Sean Wardrop were talking about how on our totem pole, he was talking about the structure of a totem pole, where we land in our life. Are we at the top of the totem pole? Are we at the middle? Are we at the bottom? And what is best for us? And sometimes we do need to be at the bottom of a totem pole to find balance in our lives, to learn from the ones above us. But overall, Sean mentioned, in the case where you are your only structure of your totem pole, the one thing that is at the top of your totem pole is God, and what he brings and how he brings balance to everything else in your life. So from top to bottom, that's the biggest thing. And I'll tell you what, guys, this life, it's not an easy thing. I don't care. You think about the gentleman who was recently caught cheating on his wife, just millionaire. I mean, just has all the money in the world, but his life just came crashing down with just a simple video that the Chris from Coldplay just happened to point them out. And some people say it was staged. I don't know if all that's true. Another thing to keep us distracted. I don't think that's true. I think it's just one of those things that, like, I believe every once in a while, all of us have to be put in check in our lives. And this guy was probably at the top of his totem pole and thought, nothing can affect me in my life right now. I am invincible. And it gets you thinking about doing a lot of those things, about committing adultery, because you're like, who's going to tell me what's wrong and what's right and what's wrong? And now his incident has been exposed, not only to his wife, but to the world, to his company that has to take action of saying, maybe it's time for you to resign because that's not the values that we want to show our company carries. And it's just amazing that sometimes we get caught up in these things that we think, man, everything is going great in our lives, and I'm going to take God off the top of my totem pole, just set him over here for right now, and I got this, and I'm going to take control. And then we start doing those things. The devil starts attacking us little at a time, saying, oh, you are invincible. Nobody can stop you now. You are at the top of your world, and anything you do has no consequence. And unfortunately, the consequence comes not only to him, but now to his family, because now his family feels shame, and it's unfortunate. And I mean, there's been so many like memes and things, and I'm not gonna lie, some of them I'm like, oh my god, it's you want to laugh, but at the same time, I always think of like, man, if that was somebody that you knew, or if it was yourself, that it just destroys you right immediately. You go from being on the top, you're taken down all the way to the bottom, because now you're having to answer to everybody that you hurt, and that and anything that came against you. It's such a hard thing to even fathom. So I do pray for that guy. I pray for the lady who was involved, also for her family, because I mean, to get through this, to get through what they have. And yes, it is their fault. And a lot of people will say it's their own fault for making this decision. Yes, it is. And there's consequences. But like I said, it's like we are attacked when we're at our most vulnerable. And so I just, when you're moving through your next decision that you're going to make, I just always have a thought of like, how does it affect me, my spiritual life, my family life, everything. And trust me, guys, I'm talking to myself when I say this, because it's not this life is not an easy path. It will bring you many obstacles to get around, to get through, and many hills that you're going to have to climb. And when you get to the top of that hill, like, how am I going to get off this hill and get back down to go to the next? And sometimes we get to the top of that hill and forget how blessed we are to be up on that hill. And we end up taking the wrong step and we'll fall all the way down to the bottom. And guys, I don't want to see anybody do that, because it's so painful to see. Like I said, even with the gentleman who was caught cheating and allegedly, and I always think about those things, and that was on my mind for this episode. How we move along in our lives, and it's so enjoyable to see couples when they interact and how they are loving. I always a great couple and I got to spend some time today with them at church. My pastor and his wife. I always watch when each of them are preaching. My Pastor Nadira, the wife of my pastor Gage, the Gages, Pastor Stephan and Nadira. While Nadira was preaching today, and I look over and I'm listening, but I'm looking over and I'm watching my pastor, and he is fully engaged in his wife's the word of God that she's giving. And I'm like, man, that is amazing when you are still that engaged, with everything that your wife is doing, or that who you love, what they're doing. And I'm like, man, such an example of how moving through your life with your spouse, with your loved ones, and if you're not married, sometimes you just have a friend that you give that support to. And I think a lot of friends and family, they need our support. There's times where there is times where I'm down and my family is there to pick me up. And I do believe that they're there to pick me up because I've shown that for them when they needed me. And so it goes both ways. And so I guess the biggest thing that I'm taking away from this podcast is just making sure that, like, your involvement, your next of what you're doing, how it affects you, and for one, yourself, your relationship with God, and how it affects the ones that you love around you. Because ultimately, I mean, you're going to have to answer either way for any of these actions. And I've learned it firsthand. There's been things in my life that I've had to answer to, and had to take the long road, where I could have taken a much easier road because I wanted to do things my way. And God says, in my way, sometimes when we go against what is given to us in the word, it's like we're taking the long route, because we're like, I don't want to take the time to have to listen to what God has given me along my path, because it's just too hard. And you think, I'm not able to do what I want to do. I'm not able to when I say feed my flesh, it's bluntly, it's feeding the sins that, like, you feel like, man, I am tempted to do. And those are the things that that sometimes cause these obstacles, where we're like, man, I wish I wouldn't have taken that road. And guys, I know that this life isn't easy. So just know that, or think about when you're taking your next step, how is that next step going to take me to the next level of my relationship, to my self-worth, to anything, because those are so important in your life. So guys, once again, I appreciate you guys so much for just coming on, listening to this podcast. This podcast is just an adventure for me, and it's a journey for me that I've been taking. And I'm 23 weeks in, guys, and I told myself that I would give myself this time to just really involve myself in, because it's taking myself sometimes out of my comfort zone. You know, when I was younger, I was not always like wanting to be out in front talking. You know, when we were with our group, God's New Creation, when I was with my group, God's New Creation, I was like, I'll just work on the music. You guys do the talking, because I never felt like, man, I don't really have anything to say, you know. But God has kind of talked to me over the years and said, you know, you've encountered so many people in your life that have been so influential and have done so many things for you, or you've done things for them, and these are inspirations that I've sent you. And I really believe that God has wanted me to take those inspirations out into the world, because I really think if you've thought about, man, I don't have nobody with me, I don't have anybody there for me, I guarantee you guys, there's always somebody there that is praying for you. And seek out those people. Sometimes it might not be in your family, it might not be current friends, it might be at a church, it might be just a person at a coffee shop, it might be somebody at work that you didn't know. So God will put those people in your lives. So there are people out there for you, and I thank God for those people who have been put in my life, including my family. That, like I said, I try to make the best decisions for them and for myself. And you know, I urge you guys to do the same, to make those decisions when you're moving through your next, whether you're at the top, you feel like you're at the top of your totem pole, or you feel like you're at the bottom, you're working your way up. Watch those decisions that you make, because they could affect, they could take a year to fix, they could take 10 years to fix down the road if you make the wrong decision sometime. My buddy Tim Gittins, Headache, he has the motto, one life, one choice, one time. And it might not be in that order, but he talks about how, you know, sometimes when you're given an opportunity, you have that one time to make that opportunity, and you might have other chances, and you might look past that opportunity, but the next chance you have might not come in the same way. And being able to take the opportunities that you have at your current time and making the right decisions, guys, it's so vital in our lives. And like I said, when we were talking about having God at the top of our totem pole, because if we start to think that we're above that, then I honestly think those decisions become so much harder to make. So guys, like I said, thank you so much for being a part of On to the Next. And I can't wait for the next set of guests that I have coming on. I have so many great people that have inspired me in my life still, and that I've seen throughout the journey of my life, that I can't wait for you guys to listen to these people. And I always tell my daughter and my son, my wife, and my wife's like, I'm not gonna, but she will be on the podcast someday, because she has such a wonderful voice, and she's such a beautiful person. And I can't wait for that to happen when I have my family on. I can't wait for like I said, some of the people that I still have moving forward. I can't wait for you guys to listen to this. And I thank you so much for listening to the podcast that have been out so far. And I promise, guys, here in the near future, I will have this on Spotify and the Apple podcast platform. So, guys, I thank you so much for listening. Guys, I pray for you, with you, and you're on to the next. Have a good one.
Play, 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 play.